Data management. The introduction for the question. The goal of this project is to highlight the overall significance and impact of the disposal of industrial and consumer waste on the ocean surface. The basic hypothesis is that the amount of industrial and consumer plastic waste that finds its way into oceans can be controlled and reduced considerably by initiating active drives on the awareness on the underlying dangers to the biodiversity of continued and uncontrolled plastic waste disposal into water bodies and undertaking campaigns on the adoption of more environmentally friendly approaches to plastic waste disposal. This project proposes that the continued adoption of the use of biodegradable packaging materials by industries should counter the detrimental short and long-term environmental effects caused by plastic waste disposal into ocean surfaces. The reason for the topic chosen is the idea of protecting natural environment. I'm not sure if you have noticed that this year is way warmer than last year because of the global warming, and we barely see snows. Even though the COVID exists, we barely hear announcements for snow days. And I wish my question and solution will remind us the hurt we brought to the earth. The statement about problem, question, and hypothesis. The question is the significance and impact of disposal of industrial and consumer waste on the ocean surface. And the hypothesis is there are concerns on the current alarming general changes in the biodiversity of the oceans of the world owing to conventional modern industrial activity churning out large volumes of plastic packaged products. The volumes of seafood that can sustainably be obtained for commercial and domestic consumption from ocean waters have maintained a downward trend in recent years. Continued changes to the ocean ecosystems are a real threat to the productivity and sustenance of the world's oceans, and settling on this topic was based on this sentiments. The primary goal for this project. The primary goal of this project is to examine the relationship between modern conventional industrial activity ending in plastic waste and consumer patterns that result in plastic waste and the effects and dangers posed by such waste constantly finding its way into oceans. By examining samples of plastic waste components retrieved from the ocean and determining their contribution and the probable rate of such distributions. The project aims at reviewing the evident loss of biodiversity and reduce ocean life sustenance through examining and distribution of distribution of plastic particles across the oceans of the world and identifying the possible repair, reversal, and mitigation techniques. The project highlights the distribution of plastic waste and particles over the most significantly affected parts, such as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The math content and data analysis. Evaluations from secondary sources, including journal articles and books, indicated that the volume of plastics in ocean surface waters across the globe stood at around 269 million tons as of 2017. Assessments revealed that there may be well over 5 trillion plastic particles across the world's ocean and sea surfaces. Over recent decades, reports showed exponential increment in the regrouping of ocean plastics. An outstanding case of large amounts of plastic groupings in ocean surface waters could be the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And the Great Pacific Garbage Patch contains the biggest aggregation of plastics within the north of the Pacific. Math content continued. In a study, simple floating objects from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch were collected from the water surface. These were isolated, tailored, and classified into the material H, N, and P type. The material type including plastic, paraffin, and elastic, while type H including hard plastic, plastic sheets, and film. Type N was made up of plastic lines, ropes, and nets, and type P was made majorly composed of plastic pellets and plates. The main observed mass and numerical concentrations from analysis of the HNMP and material classifications of plastic from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch were summarized into a table as below. So this is the table I was talking about. More information will be shown on the report. The conclusion. The biggest proportion of plastic waste finding its way into oceans is attributable to plastic packaging. Plastic waste from restaurants and consumption of off-the-shelf commodities also made up a major percentage of the waste. The biodiversity in life in the oceans was found to majorly depend on the extent of the purity and freshness of the ocean surfaces. The amount of seafood that can be viably and sustainably obtained over the recent decades was seen to decline gradually owing to the continued ocean water pollution from plastic waste. Patterns of fishing activity within and around the Great Pacific Garbage Patch indicated constantly reducing numbers of thriving species of fish and most other sea creatures, a trend replicable across the rest of the world's ocean water bodies. Repeat measures that must involve revised legislations on plastic waste disposal into oceans and investment in the creation of awareness on the benefits of reducing the use of plastics should be taken by governments and the private sectors around the world. In a bid to eliminate the impending dangers associated with ocean water pollution. Two sources of raw data. The first one is in-person interviews with employees of deep-sea fishing companies. They highlight gradual declines in the available volumes of fish and numbers of fish varieties. The second one is a review of ocean floor samples from the National Conservancy, indicated a gradual loss of biodiversity over past decades. And this is the bibliography of my project. Thank you.